This is the 2013 Ford Escape. This has been completely redesigned for the 2013 model year. As you can see, it doesn't look like the boxy Ford Escape that we've been used to. And there are two reasons for that. First one is, this is now based on the Ford Global Focus platform with a wide variety of other Ford products. And number two is, this is actually sold now all around the world, whereas the previous Ford Escape was really just sold in North America and Australia. As you can see from the side profile, Ford has completely ditched the boxy mini truck butch good looks of the previous generation Escape for this more, in a way, traditional crossover look. And this is definitely the form factor that has really served Honda and Toyota very well in this segment. Like it or not, the Ford C-Max hybrid replaces the Escape hybrid, but don't worry, there's still three engine options to choose from. The first one is a 2.5-liter four-cylinder engine. It's the base engine, produces 168 horsepower and 170 pound-feet of torque, and it's really not the engine you want, and it's really not the engine you're going to find on the lot either, because, again, that is only in that base model, and it's only front-wheel drive as well. The SC and SEL models start with the 1.6-liter Ecoboost engine. That's a four-cylinder direct injection turbo engine, good for 178 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. It's also available with all-wheel drive. Now, optional on the SE and SEL and standard on the Titanium model is the 2-liter Ecoboost engine, good for 240 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque. All three engines are mated to the same Ford 6-speed transmission, and the SE, SEL, and Titanium models have optional all-wheel drive as well. If you're familiar with the new Ford C-Max, this interior will look very familiar to you. We have the shifter in essentially the same position, we have the same dual-zone climate controls, we have the same MyFord Touch screen here, we have very similar MyFord Touch controls over here in the center console. We have the same little knee air vent here. There's a little knob here in the center console, and it opens these vents underneath the display area to blow air on your legs and knees. That's very handy. I find myself in the car wanting more air down there on my legs frequently in many cars, and this has the perfect solution. We also have very similar vents here on the side, as you can see, very similarly styled to the C-Max, again with an upper vent as well as a lower vent that you can direct air down towards your leg area. This new Escape uses much nicer materials. This dashboard is a nice soft touch dash. We have full leather upholstery available on the Titanium model, and we have nice soft touch doors as well. Even the buttons and knobs on the dashboard have a much more premium feel than the outgoing Escape model, and everything in here is finely assembled with the precision that you'd associate with Toyota and Honda products. The Escape's driver's seat offers a very good range of motion, suitable for a wide variety of driver sizes and shapes. It's fairly wide and it's not very heavily bolstered, meaning that larger drivers shouldn't have a problem fitting in here either. Since we're in the Titanium model, we of course have an electric seat with a two-way electric lumbar support and a 3-position memory here on the door. We also get a tilt telescoping steering wheel in the dash, but as you can see, the range of motion is a little bit limited. Now, this front passenger seat is not electrically adjusted. Even in this Titanium model, we still have the manual adjustment bar here, and we don't have any adjustable lumbar support here for the front passenger. As with most cars, the further back you go, the less comfortable the trappings get. And here in the rear, we get hard plastic door panels instead of the soft plastic door panels that we get up front. But we still have reclining seat backs in the rear with fairly nice adjustable headrests as well. And the headroom in this vehicle is pretty good. I'm 6 feet tall, and even in this middle seat, even though it has a slight hump to it as well, I still have a solid 3 to 4 inches of headroom left. Now back over here, this front driver's seat is adjusted for me at 6 feet tall, and thanks to fairly thin and fairly curved front seat backs, I still have about 2 to 3 inches of legroom behind this front seat for me. And behind this passenger seat, which is adjusted in its most rearward position, we had a 6'5" person here, I still have about an inch of legroom left in the back. Now, these seat bottom cushions are a little bit close to the floor for adults, but they should be fine for kids. Compared to the outgoing Escape, these rear seats are much easier to fold. It's a one-hand operation with the exception of this folding headrest here, and they do fold completely flat, making that cargo area considerably larger. Let's go take a look at that now. The Escape scores 7 out of 10 points in our exclusive Trunk Comfort Index, and that's thanks to a fairly nicely appointed rear area. Now, we have the largest roller bag you can carry on a domestic flight, and as you can see, it's kind of hiding back here behind me. You can easily fit a number of those in the cargo area. And these rear seat backs can be adjusted so that they're almost vertical, squaring off this cargo area. Quite a handy feature, in addition to that reclining feature here as well. Now, the Escape can be had with a manual hatch, a power hatch, which of course we can close with this remote here. And you can also get that funky new kick hatch where you just sort of wave your foot underneath the rear bumper to open and close the trunk. MyFord Touch has received some mixed press, let's be perfectly honest about that. But we're just going to dive in, we're going to take a look at the system, and you can make up your own mind about it. The first thing you need to know is there's a home screen in this system. It's divided into 4 quadrants. We have our phone, our navigation, our entertainment, and our climate control. Now, if you don't have the navigation system, this upper right-hand quadrant is still there. It's just that it only contains the compass directions here. It doesn't actually give you any street information or any navigation ability. Over here on the phone quadrant, it's your pretty standard phone interface with voice commands, of course, and you can also voice command dialing a specific number if you don't have that person in your address book. A nice feature in the phone interface is the ability to send these canned text messages to your contacts via voice command or via the screen. The navigation interface is fairly standard. We have, of course, the choice of 2D or 3D views in this particular system. You can enter addresses manually by hitting this destination button over here and typing that address in, although the system is a little bit sluggish when you do that, or you can use the voice commands to command an address.
Please say a command.
Navigation, destination, street address.
In California, say the street address including the city.
6581 Camden Avenue, San Jose, California.
When ready, press the voice button and then say set as destination, or say change something.
As you can see, the system is very responsive when you use the voice commands, strangely responsive actually when you consider how slow the physical interface there is for button stabbing. The system works very well, never really seemed to make a mistake even on more complicated street names, although one important thing to keep in mind is if you're entering addresses for certain cities, you have to enter the address the way that the system expects it to. So for instance, City of Industry, California, you would have to enter the address as Industry, California, even though City of is part of the official name of that city. The system doesn't understand that, so you just use Industry, California. Over here on the climate control, we have duplicate buttons essentially because that dual zone climate control has physical buttons further down on the dash. These are really just duplicate commands here, and these are also voice commandable in the sync system.
Climate, say a command.
Set temperature to 69 degrees.
Did you say 69 degrees?
Yes.
Setting temperature to 69 degrees.
Over here on the entertainment tab, we have our usual infotainment interface. Over here on the left, we have our sources, AM, FM, Sirius, radio, of course, single CD changer up in the dash. We have our USB interfaces. There are two of them in this car. The second one would show up if there was something plugged into it. We have our Bluetooth streaming interface. We have an SD card interface. This can only be used if you either don't have the navigation system or you don't need to navigate at the moment because the nav maps do use that SD card slot. And then we have a usual composite AV video in here that will display video on this particular screen if you're in park. The system worked very well with our iPhone 5, as you can see, with or without the Apple adapter cable. It also worked well with our iPad 3, although it was not able to charge the iPad 3 because it doesn't provide enough power. Now, exploring your music device is fairly snappy in this particular system, although there are still moments where the MyFord Touch system lags and just freezes momentarily, but it hasn't crashed on us recently, which is a very good thing because the first generations of this particular system really had some crashing problems. Now, of course, the entertainment interface is fully voice commandable as well, as you would expect from a sync product. Play artist Madonna.
Playing artist Madonna.
Now, the system is a little bit sluggish sometimes with the voice commands. It really just depends on how many songs you have on your iPhone or your iPod. I have about 6,000 on my particular device, so it does take some time to find those tracks. You can also voice command things like shuffling. You can ask the system what's playing. You can tell the system to play similar music, etc. Being related to the global focus, it should be no surprise that this new Ford Escape handles way better than the outgoing Escape. In fact, this titanium model with the 2-liter turbo engine and the all-wheel drive system is quite a competent handler on windy mountain roads and even fun enough to really abuse heavily enough to get those brakes to start smoking. While 240 horsepower may not sound that impressive as far as a V6 replacement goes, it's that 270 pound-feet of torque that you need to keep in mind, because this engine produces all that torque over a much broader range than any V6 that's naturally aspirated. And as a result, our tester scooted to 60 in 6.4 seconds to 6.5 seconds, depending on the run, which is very good compared to many of the V6 entries in this segment, specifically the RAV4 V6. Now, the old Ford Escape looked like a little truck and handled like one too, but this new Escape is a completely different animal. And it's really no surprise that this is based on the global Ford Focus platform, because it sort of handles like a tall, slightly overweight Focus. And that's really a good thing, especially compared to some of the other entries in this segment. We can thank the relatively wide rubber on this titanium trim, as well as the torque vectoring axles for that. Now, the torque vectoring system in the Escape is, of course, a brake-actuated torque vectoring system rather than a true torque vectoring differential, as you would see in luxury vehicles. Well, our Escape is rated for 21 miles per gallon in the city and 28 on the highway, with a combined rating of 24. Our average has been running about 21.5 to 22 miles per gallon over about 600 miles of very mixed driving. Now, keeping in mind that I do have to go up and over a 2,200-foot mountain pass on my daily commute, it really isn't that bad, but it's not exactly stellar. It really does, however, slot in exactly with the rest of the V6 competition with all-wheel drive, which again is really no surprise because this vehicle essentially replaces the Ford Escape V6. Ford's recent dedication to making quieter cabins is very apparent in this new Escape, although there is still a decent amount of engine noise, and since this is still a 4-cylinder engine and it's direct injection, there is a bit more engine noise than you would normally think in some vehicles. Now, if you don't need the trappings of the titanium model, the SE and SEL models are available with that 1.6-liter Ecoboost engine. Now, that's really considered to be the base engine for the vast majority of shoppers, and so we should directly compare that one to the approximately 2.4 to 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engines in the competition. And compared to those, that's really a gem of an engine, because despite its smaller displacement and those 2 recalls that have happened with that engine, it's very drivable. All that torque starts at 2,500 RPM and continues to over 5,000 RPM with that engine, which is very different than the regular 4-cylinder engines of the competition that are naturally aspirated. And that means that even though this transmission is incredibly upshift happy in both the 1.6 and the 2.0-liter turbo engines, it really is not a problem with these engines because there's that abundant low-end torque to help you up the hill. Now, it really is quite annoying in that 2.5-liter base engine just because of its torque characteristics, even though it shifts essentially the same way that the 1.6 and 2.0-liter turbo engines do. With this new Escape, Ford has a solid entry in this small crossover segment. While we haven't seen the new RAV4 yet, I would definitely place this model above the Honda CR-V, even considering some of the early teething problems with that 1.6-liter Ecoboost engine. Now, of course, check back with us when we do get our hands on that Toyota RAV4, but until then, definitely put the Escape at the top of your list. And as always, be sure to check out thetruthaboutcars.com for news, reviews, and more. Just go ahead and bookmark us, subscribe to this video feed, go check us out on Facebook, do all those other social things that you like, and maybe if you do that, I will stop looking at the camera and keep my hands on the steering wheel during reviews. You never know.